All right, welcome everybody. How are you? It is Wednesday, 7 o'clock, and it is the 50th anniversary of Jaws.
Yes.
Probably
50.
one of the best movies ever made, and I would consider this a perfect movie.
You consider this a perfect movie?
It's a perfect movie. I don't see anything that I would say that I would change about this movie.
It is a pretty freaking good movie. I will give you that. Yeah.
So that's just my opinions. You can, as opinions are like, what.
I also find it highly enjoyable.
Yep.
Even after all these years. Like, this is one of those movies that remember back in the days when you could click through the TV? If you're flipping through the TV and you stumbled across it, you watched it. You didn't flip away.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, I was saying, I bought, they just came out with the Ultra 4K version. By the way, this is a really bargain if you don't have a copy of it in Blu-ray already, because it has the Blu-ray, it has the 4K HD, and it comes with another Blu-ray disc of an hour-and-a-half documentary, which is excellent. I need to watch that today.
Nice.
So well worth it. For $23 on Amazon, can't beat it.
All right.
Yes, that's right, Christopher Roche. It was the very first summer blockbuster. Anyway, before we get into the movie, I want to say happy birthday to my mother.
Oh, happy birthday to Sam.
No, my mother, not my
your
daughter.
Mother. Happy birthday to your mom. I thought you said your daughter. Sorry. Do I need to turn my fan off?
Mother, daughter, they sound just like. Anyway.
They do. They just sound. I heard daughter.
Anyway, news.
News tonight. I only have 3 pieces of news tonight. Guys, today is June 18th. That means this Friday starts summer, which means the summer blockbusters are coming out. And there's like a million of them. Like, there's a million summer releases. Of all of them, this is my predictions for the big 3. I think the big 3 this summer are going to be James Gunn's Superman is going to be number 1, like above and beyond. I think the Fantastic Four might do okay. And I think of all the rest of them, I look through, and I'm thinking maybe Jurassic World might take it. I don't know. Other stuff that's coming out include Life of Chuck's out now, How to Train Your Dragon's out now, 28 years later. It's coming out this Friday. The F1 Formula Racing with Brad Pitt. Okay. Oh, Naked Gun with Liam Neeson. That might do okay. And Toxic Avenger with Peter Dinklage. That might do okay. I don't know. What do you think? What do you want to see this summer, Rizzo?
No, none of it.
None of it. Yeah, honestly,
nothing really jumps out that I must see. Honestly, yeah. I'm Superman'd out. I just don't care. I haven't really been interested in Superman since Christopher Reeve, so
yeah.
It's just not a big Superman fan.
Our generation's quintessential.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, nothing. If you like it, you like it. It's great. I mean, I think Cavill was good, honestly, but I don't really like a broody Superman.
Yeah, Cavill was a broody. Well, that wasn't his fault. That was
no. I'm just saying I don't particularly care for that particular kind of.
I think this one is a heavy.
Naked Gun might be worth it, but not enough to get me to the theater.
Yeah, I'll watch that at home.
I
am gonna watch How to Train Your Dragon.
I wish they would re-release this movie back in the theater. I'd go see it in a shop, because one of the things that I've always regretted is I never saw it in the theater. Because I was just a little too young, and I'm probably glad that I didn't see it in the theater, because it would have scared the absolute crap out of me as a 7-year-old child. So, but as an adult, I love it.
All right, moving on with the news. You guys, I'm sure have already all heard Strange New Worlds. Okay, so we're still waiting for Strange New Worlds season 3 to kick off. We know they're actually, I believe, season 4 is in production now. They have just gotten the green light on season 5, but it has been announced season 5 will be the last season, making it a true 5-year mission, and it's going to be abbreviated. There will only be 6 episodes. So what's going to happen? What are they going to do
in season 5?
In season 5, the last.
But that's like 3 years from now. I'm like, how do they even decide to determine that?
They might keep going after they're done with season 4. So I want to know, we already have Scotty. We actually already have Kirk, Chapel, Uhura, and Spock. They're all there already. So are we going to see McCoy and Sulu?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
end up in the chair. Are they going to redo the cage? Are we going to get it to where Kirk takes command? Like, what are they going to do?
The cage is already the cage has already happened.
No.
Yes,
the cage has already happened.
Cage has already happened. He knows.
I thought at the start of this show he was just taking command.
The cage had already happened by Discovery season 2. Because that whole season was when he finds out that he will die, or not die, but be horribly maimed. So that was the whole point of season. That was the whole point of first season.
He saw Vina.
Was him trying to buck the system until he realized.
Yeah, he saw Vina in the flashback. Or whatever the hell it was.
So
that's stupid.
Let's see if they actually go to a strange new world this season.
We might.
Or if we're gonna have more.
I think it's gonna be more shenanigans. I don't think
it's gonna be more shenanigans.
It's gonna be more shenanigans.
I don't know. I haven't been paid for Paramount in a while. The thing is, Paramount has some other good shows. So, I mean, it's not that it's that bad. It's just
Finally tonight. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I just don't want to turn it on and turn it off again. I'm not going to turn it on to watch Stranger Worlds and then turn it off and then turn it back on to watch Starfleet Academy or whatever the hell it is.
I'm just not going to pay for anything.
I mean, it's either it's on or I watch it on Canucka Vision.
What's his name? Sheridan there writes all of their shows for them anyway. Those are all the ones usually worth watching.
Oh, really? All the Yellowstone stuff?
Yeah, the stuff. Well, he does other shows. They're all kind of the same, but they're all pretty good. So, but yeah, he's the one that did Yellowstone and then the spin-offs, which is what 1889 or whatever it was, and then
it's 18
and
whatever.
then 1923 or whatever the heck it was, and then which was good, and then he did the other one about the oil field rig guys, which is pretty good with Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob.
Yeah, it's a good show. Anyway, and the one with Hawkeye there. Mayor, which is a really good show. So anyway, none of that is sci-fi.
No, that's sci-fi. That's right. All right, guys, moving on. Speaking of, this is sci-fi. It has happened, much to Rizzo's delight. Mel Brooks has finally announced.
What do you say like that? Like I always liked Spaceballs.
Unless this is a really late April Fool's joke. Mel Brooks has finally announced Spaceballs.
Yeah, and they're bringing back Pullman.
They're bringing back Pullman.
All the original cast is still alive, basically.
They're bringing back Daphne Zuniga.
They're bringing Rick Moranis back. They're bringing what's her name? Zuniga. I think
they're bringing back Rick Moranis.
That's all the original cast. That's still. I mean,
they have a new someone for John Candy's, a female, I believe, for a new Barf. And a new female for the robot whose name I can't remember.
Dot Matrix was the character, but it was Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers.
Rivers, thank you. Yes.
Who is not with us? And maybe her daughter will do it. I don't know who they're gonna get.
Melissa.
Anyway, so that should be good if Mel makes it. I mean, he's 90. He's like 98.
Oh yeah, he wants to come back as Yogurt.
Yeah, he's going to come back as Yogurt. So I can't imagine he didn't have a big part the first time, but at 98, he's going to be 100 by the time this thing.
God love him.
God love him is right. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of exciting. I'm kind of looking forward to that. We'll see what they do. Hopefully it'll be good.
Rizzo, what are we drinking tonight while we go back in the water?
This is kind of it's called Blood in the Water. It's actually similar to the other one that we had for Jaws. It's real similar. So
that's actually a very cool looking drink.
Yes, Captain Morgan light rum, which is basically white, blue curacao, some sour mix, and some grenadine dripped in there for the blood.
The blood
in the water. So,
all right, guys. Throughout the show tonight, I am going to be asking trivia questions. Actually, I can even type them. I'll type them and put them in the chat. I think they're very hard. But if you watched our show, and it was like a year ago, we did Jaws a year ago. If you watched that show a year ago, you'll know all these answers. I lifted these questions straight out of that show. And I have prizes. So I need to keep track. I need a piece of paper and a pencil to see who's getting what questions right tonight. Rizzo, can you show the prizes or should I show them?
I didn't. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't upload them.
How do I show the prizes?
You have to... I don't know how I totally blew that. I forgot to do it. Hang on a second. I don't know if I can.
I click present. Is that what it is?
if you have a picture, I'm just hit present screen or something. Yeah.
All right, let me actually pull the pictures up so that we're kind of prepared, and you don't watch me digging around in my.
I have plenty of sci-fi distilled stickers.
Ooh.
So if you're gonna be a Shatner, find me. I'm allegedly doing security again. So find me. I'll keep some in my pocket.
I'm gonna share.
The regular viewers can have a sticker.
How do I find the photo?
Should I play maybe I should play the what's the music that da 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 da?
Yeah, play them. Yeah, no, hang on, cancel. I can't figure out how to do this.
Anyway,
this prizes which you may.
I'll talk about the movie. So this was obviously based on Peter Benchley's book of the same name, and the book came out in the early 70s, and it was hugely popular. Very popular book. So of course, it got optioned for a film, and actually Spielberg saw the original, I guess, the treatment for it, and after he had done Duel by this point, and he wanted to he lobbied to do this, and they're like, well, we already got director and everything, and I guess they were interviewing directors to do this. One of the directors kept calling it The Whale. So
yeah, The Whale.
They kept referring to the shark as The Whale, so he was out. They're like, you're out. So Paramount called Spielberg, and they're like, it's available. Do you still want it? And of course, he jumped on it. And he's we always compare this to Duel, and it is very similar. And even he says this is like the next iteration of Duel. Like he literally knew that when he was making it and when he wanted to do it. Now, when he did Duel, he had again to lobby with the studio to do this on site, on location, and not in a studio with a rear projection screen. The old guys.
That would have looked awful. They
would have been
right
terrible had they done that with Duel. And he had the same opinion. He felt he was very concerned that if he did this in the tank at Universal, it would look comical. The shark wouldn't come off as being serious, and it would be too fake. And so he had to do it. Of course, nobody thought at the time that it was going to take 8 to 9 months in Martha's Vineyard to shoot this thing. And he learned a valuable lesson. Of course, when they built the shark, the remote shark, they had 3 of them, by the way, that did different things. One of them would go up and down. The other ones were for if you saw one side of the left or the right, so that they had built it. When they built the shark, the guys that built it, for some reason, were thinking they were going to be using it in a tank and not the ocean. Well, what's the difference between a tank and the ocean aside from waves? It's salt. And as anybody knows, salt water and electronics and hydraulics and steel do not mix well. So that's why they had massive amounts of problems with the shark. In fact, Richard Dreyfuss will tell you, he's like, he constantly, he's been in interviews. It's like, all we ever heard was shark's not working. The shark's not on the radio. And until finally one day. But the reason they shot that opening scene, why we never see the shark, is because the shark was broken.
Yes.
That was the reason. That was the original reason. And after he thought about it, he kind of said, it's more terrifying not seeing it. And I think anybody would agree that it's down there, what it is, but not seeing it. And in fact, the fact that the shark broke down so much was one of the reasons it took so long for us to finally see it in the end, when it comes up and starts smashing the orca apart. So, but some of the stuff was shot in a tank. Some of it was, in fact, after they had wrapped shooting in Martha's Vineyard, they did go back to LA. They brought the sharks. They went to the tank. They did the scenes where Hooper is in the cage.
Mm-hmm.
That was all shot in the tank. There was some others. Oh, the fact, the scene, he was because the studio was so pissed at how much this thing cost, because he was like ridiculously over budget. In fact, he thought he'd never work again. Dreyfuss went up to him and said, "Your career's done. You're never going to work after this. You realize that, right?" Because but he needed pickup.
You keep talking. I'm going to share.
Okay, he needed pickups, and
Hopefully you guys can see that.
no,
You can't see that?
I see a screen of what looks like a bunch of pictures. I see it. Oh wait, here you go.
Did it go?
I got this. This one. Yeah, there's that.
There we go. So these are the prices. There's that, or
this is my fave. You remember that now? That was the plate that came out of the tiger shark.
Yep.
Oh, what?
It was all bent up.
And this one's great too. Yeah. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So if you want to try for any of those, I'm gonna put the questions in the chat.
In the quack chat. So anyway, I forgot where it was, but yeah. So he was sneaking off on his own to shoot some pickup scenes. In fact, he did one in somebody's swimming pool. The boat, when Ben Gardner's head comes out of the boat, that was shot in somebody's swimming pool.
Yeah, and they put milk. They poured milk into the pool to make it look a little more cloudy and oceanic.
So a lot of cool stuff they did. Okay, there's the first question. First trivia question. Why did Spielberg ask, what would Hitchcock do? And the other one was, the next one is, whose dogs were in the movie? Okay.
Whose dogs were in the movie?
So whoever answers in the chat first correctly.
And there's lots of questions, guys.
Will win.
And you may glean some answers as Rizzo and I are talking tonight. So
what was that was just two questions. Was there three or just?
That's just two so far. Two.
Okay.
Oh, Martin gets, I'm going to put one for Martin. Whoever gets the most. No, Sue, it wasn't Royce.
I don't even know the answer to that one.
Can't say.
So one of the things Steven did, I think, that also offered a lot of authenticity to this movie was he used a lot of local people that lived and were born on Martha's Vineyard.
Yes, he did, and that was really smart.
A lot of Islanders, as they were called.
Yes.
So pretty much the only people who were actors was Roy Scheider, obviously, Richard Dreyfuss, the guy that got eaten in the little dinghy in the pond. That guy came from California. The Robert Shaw, obviously. Trying to think who else. There wasn't that many more. The guy that played the news reporter, remember he said, call so-and-so and tell him he owes me a favor. He's actually a really good friend of Spielberg. And he was from the rest of them, even the cop. Remember the original cop that found the body on the beach, and then he was the one going, there, they had a shark attack out at he's actually isn't a professional actor, but he was originally from Martha's Vineyard. He grew up in Martha's Vineyard. So he actually had called Spielberg when he found out they were making this movie and they were making it on Martha's Vineyard and said, I want to, and of course they hired him right away because he definitely fit the bill. So, but all those people, when they do this,
sort of, but not quite.
Huh? Oh,
keep going. Just responding to her.
So the scene where they're in the council meeting when Robert Shaw does the screeching on the thing and has this little speech about bad fish swallow you whole.
Yeah,
taking a little tenderizing, down you go. Those people, all the people, in fact, the ones on the council, I mean, those were real people from Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, those are people from Martha's
all real people.
Pretty much, like all the extras were locals. I mean, which was smart because it gave it
a certain authenticity. Their accents were correct.
The accents were correct.
And they looked at a lot of locations up and down the New England seaboard. And the guy that was doing the special effects was looking for very specific conditions of their bay to shoot this. It had to be no more than 25 feet deep. It had to have a very low tide. In other words, the tide would only had about a 2-foot tide. So he's like, it fit Martha's Vineyard fit the bill like perfectly to what he needed to make the shark. Because remember, what you don't realize is that most of that mechanism was sunk on the bottom.
Yes.
This whole thing of pulleys, if you've seen it, I should have grabbed some stills and show you. I mean, it's quite the contraption that they had to make the shark do what it had to do. And of
That
course, they used
poor, not Chrissy, her name, the actress was Susan Blacklinney.
Yep.
To pull her back, they had a whole thing rigged
right.
for
They
her.
had her like in a what do you call it, like a corset thing with ropes tied to it.
Yeah.
And they had 5 guys on one side and 5 guys on the other side, and they would yank because he wanted this kind of yanking her. I don't know how they didn't break her neck.
She looks yanked. Like she looks like she's,
Yeah. So she did reprise her role, which I thought was hysterical, in 1941, which is also, we talked about that. We did 1941 in Spielberg, except it wasn't a shark that came up underneath her, it was a submarine. So that was kind of funny. But that movie, when we think about that movie and you watch, and that's the opening scene, that opening scene alone is probably the most terrifying of the whole film.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
It really is, and it sets the whole film up.
It sets the tone right away that they're not screwing around. And I think I told this story the last time we did it when I used to, in college, when I used to scuba dive. We used to do night diving for lobsters. And we were down in Stonington, Connecticut. We were out at the point, and I think there's 4 of us, and 3 of us were out already floating in the water, waiting for the last 4th guy to get his stuff together to come out. And it was one of these moonlit night, but very clear, but you get that light on the water, and we're floating there waiting. And I go, "Hey guys, you remember the opening scene to Jaws?" And everybody's like, "F you." Because that's what it was. Just you couldn't see black. Black underneath you. You couldn't see anything. So night diving is, if you've ever done it, is a little weird. So it's neat, but it can be a little scary.
Yeah. So just to update everyone, I've got 4 questions up now. Martin has gotten 2 correct answers, and that's all we've gotten. So I'm going to keep putting questions up, keep throwing me answers.
I don't know how you're tallying is. I'll leave it up to you. I'm tallying.
I've got your name. When you get an answer in, I'll put the little hashtag and you get one right.
Okay.
And whoever has the most hashtags at the end.
So of course, when this was released, it was, like we said earlier, it was the very first summer blockbuster. This movie it made an insane amount of money. I think at the time, it made $250 million. That was 1975. By today's standard, that's $1.5 billion. That's how much money that movie made. They did, by today, we figure for inflation, it would be about $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
That's how much movie. This movie was just insane what it brought in. And again, it was kind of like those of us that kind of grew up in the 70s and remember those, the big movies like 2001, not 2001, like E.T. No, not E.T. either. Close Encounters, Star Wars.
Yes.
I mean, you remember those big blockbuster movies, and you remember people waiting online. Because they didn't do, you pre-buy your ticket a week in advance online. Yeah, you had to stand there online.
Give your money, yeah.
And then if you didn't get in, you could go, well, we'll sell you a ticket for the next showing, and you can wait 2 hours, or come back or whatever. I think they started, in fact, I don't even know if they did that back. I think the first time I ever saw them doing that was for E.T. Because E.T. was another huge, now that was what, that was 1980s, right, by then? But yeah, still, I mean, it was the same kind of thing where people were just like, it was such a thing to go see it, and people were just like waiting online. It was, you just don't see it today. It's just that kind of. That's why I say you asked me what I'm excited to see. Nothing. Nothing generates
anymore.
I mean, I remember the summer of '75. I remember this movie came out. I remember my sisters, because they were older. They went to see it with, I think, my dad. Probably, he's always the one that took everybody. But I remember like the radios, there was just Jaws, everything, anything shark. People became obsessed with sharks. Nobody really knew sharks until after Jaws. I mean, you know what I'm saying? What a shark was, but nobody gave a crap about sharks until after Jaws came out, and they were sending tons of merchandise. And I remember the radio stations having contests, and you could win a shark repellent kit. As a radio contest. It's crazy things like that. And I think trying to think of what was my train of thought there for a second where I was going with it. But yeah, it was just nobody, of course, went in the water. I mean, people were scared to go swimming. was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was this. That's what. The unfortunate result of the movie was people kind of put open season on sharks, and particularly great whites. They had a huge. They lost, according to the documentary I watched, they lost like 80% of their population in the years following this movie because people were going out. People were going out and fishing for them because they wanted that same, hey, I caught a great white or a shark.
They were really demonized. They are better understood now, but yeah, for a hot minute there.
Yeah, in fact, they're still fished like in Asia for their fins. They're treated horribly because they'll just cut the fins off and throw them back in the ocean, still alive. Which, of course, they don't grow them back; they just sink to the bottom and eventually, basically, drown.
Yeah,
because sharks have to keep moving to
keep moving. Yeah.
And so you'll never go anywhere and order if you see shark fin soup. Never ever order that.
No.
It's a delicacy apparently, but it's not worth the cost to the because these are very slow growing animals. Also, they're not prolific, and so. But on the upside of that, there has been because of they becoming endangered and people becoming more knowledge about them. There's actually becoming more protected rather than there was a incident where a shark washed up on the beach kind of like a whale would, and rather than most people back in the day would have just let it die because it's a shark, not a whale. Now they're literally helped this thing to get back in the water to save it. So luckily there's an attitude change.
Yes. The fourth question was the very hard question. Name or describe a classic Hitchcock shot from the film. Martin got that, the dolly pan. I would have also taken the wipes where Brody's sitting on the beach and people would walk by and it would wipe. It was like a Star Wars wipe and it would change to something else. Or I would take Brody peeking over the guy's shoulder. I would have taken any of those. And then Martin, you also just got the sixth question. The sixth question was, what did they ship all the way from Florida for this movie? Yeah, the shark they cut up for the autopsy, it was a tiger shark, and they shipped it up from Florida, and it was dead and stinking, and they used it in this movie. So gross. So Martin, you're killing it at 4. Everyone is giving me some good guesses, some really good guesses, but Martin
knows how to use Google, I bet.
Martin knows how to use Google, or Martin studied our last episode. I don't know which.
Maybe. I don't remember these from the last episode, honestly.
We talked about all of this. Every question I'm asking tonight came straight from...
I just don't remember. I have the memory of a gnat. So I don't remember. But so as a kid, I mean, Jaws was a huge phenomenon. I mean, even though I never saw it, I was certainly aware of it. And then I don't know when I saw it for the first time. It must have been like on VHS or something.
All right, you guys can get this one.
Because
I didn't see it in the theater because I was too little. But I must have seen it on TV.
Yeah, I was just a little too young. And like I said, at 7, I know people saw it at 7, 8 years old. I'm sure I'm not. But my parents were probably smart not to say, yeah, you shouldn't probably go see that one. And you watch it now and you're like, okay, this is. I remember me and my wife would talk about it because it was one of our favorite movies. And with my daughter, and she was like, oh, okay, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary. And she watched and she's like, that wasn't scary. And I'm like, okay, I get it. By today's standards, the stuff the kids are seeing. Yeah. I mean, the stuff on TV is scarier than this.
We talked about this last time. The Boys, the TV show The Boys, order of magnitude.
Well, I mean, that's just grosser. The Boys is not so much scary. It's shocking.
Chris
I think maybe Walking Dead might be a good example of TV that's kind of went off the rails with.
Chris, you're on the board.
What was the question?
7th question. Who was Quint based on?
Oh.
And Chris got me hit. Keep talking.
I'm telling the whole show. Usually it's like.
Yeah, but you like to talk, so it's good. I'm just doing the trivia.
Oh, really? Because usually I can't get a word in edgewise.
Hey, I did the news. I'm good.
You did the news. You're just going to sit here and do trivia and let me talk for an hour. Okay. Yeah, how it is. Oh, God. What else? I mean, so we talked about the production. We talked about how long they were in Martha's Vineyard. Of course, weather and tides and then Bruce White Break. By the way, as you know, they called the remote shark Bruce. After Spielberg's lawyer. And he just said it originally as a joke, but then it just caught on, and everybody just started referring to the shark as Bruce. One of the scenes is Dreyfuss remembering, he always said, he always heard on the radio, the shark's broken. And then he heard, oh, the shark's fixed.
Yeah.
And they're shooting on the orca, and it's the scene where the barrel gets taken. Like they're sitting there, and all of a sudden the barrel takes off because it's on the rope because the shark, bolts. Well, the way they did that was they had the barrels basically tied to a speedboat, and the guy took off kind of faster than they wanted him to.
Yep.
And it literally ripped a plank off the side of the orca where it was tied, and it started sinking. So the boat literally, they had to get the actors off of the boat because it literally sank. So crazy things like that happen. But this really did have an impact on Spielberg, not in a positive way. He literally he even said, he goes, I had PTSD. They didn't know what it was. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing then. But he's like, I would wake up after the movie were wrapped, and even after it was a success, I would wake up in sweats thinking I was still shooting this movie, that we would never get it done, having nightmares. And he tells a story even years after the movie was done, had been released. He would get in his little golf cart at Universal Studios and kind of sneak behind the tours. They had those trams, and go to where the orca was docked because it was part of the tour, and sneak onto the orca and curl up on that little leatherette bench, where they gave the Indianapolis speech, and kind of just lay there because it was like his therapy, because he was literally that.
That was our second trivia. Where did it go? Third trivia question. Nobody got it. What did Spielberg have nightmares about during the filming of this movie? It was not actually the shark. It was the studio pulling the plug on him, and they were threatening to fire him. He was way over budget, way over schedule. They were supposed to film from May to June, and they filmed from May to September or something.
Yeah, he ended up. Yeah, they went into August. Yeah. Keep in mind, this was only really his second major film. He had done Duel. He did Sugarland Express by this point. So really, it was only his so he was still really he really had no clout in Hollywood at this point.
Yeah.
And one of the studio heads had come out. They finally flew out. One of the guys flew out to Martha's Vineyard. And he kind of, he said, they had a conversation, at least on the back steps of one of the places they're staying. He said, the guy's like, what are we going to do? What do you want to do? This is, we're out of control here. And Steven said, he's like, I'm going to finish this film. I'm going to finish the film one way or the other. And a lot of the crew thought that this would never get finished. In fact, like I said, the townspeople, it became part of their culture for that year, because they were supposed to be around for 3 months, and they were there for eight or almost 9 months. So, it was kind of a crazy situation with half the stuff. You figure how much time they must have all been burnt to a crisp. You figure every day.
Outside on the ocean,
on the water. I mean, it must have been. You think about, oh, hey, this is really cool. No, it would have been. I could see it being a complete nightmare.
I'm trying to think of some behind the scenes shots, and I can't think of any crewmen wearing the white, the super white sunscreen or whatever that was.
Yeah, the sunscreen. Yeah,
I don't think I saw. They must have been burnt, because I can't think of anyone wearing it.
So interestingly enough, when they shot the scene at the beach, okay, when little Kittner boy, who by the way was an Islander, and his mother was an Islander,
both Islanders, yes.
It was May when they shot that. Okay. Now anybody who lives around New England, the shore, knows what the water is like in May.
Cold.
That was
still cold.
And even he said as a kid in the interview, the actor that played Kittner, he's like, I wasn't worried about the shark. I was worried about freezing. Because you think about it. I mean, even in July, that water's cold.
Yeah, I mean, we're
what it was like in May
now, and even now that water is
still. It must have been at least 45 or 50 degrees. I bet that water.
Yeah, the waters off New England are cool. I mean, get near the shore as summer wears on. By the end of July, August, as summer wears on, those
Remember,
were
keep in mind, Martha's Vineyard is Atlantic Ocean. There's no.
Yeah.
It's not like Long Island Sound where I grew up. Near the in southern Connecticut, and you go to Long
open
Island Sound
ocean
because it
when
was
you go
warmer,
east. Yeah,
a little warmer. But yeah, you go out. That was the open Atlantic. So
Yeah.
it was that water was cold. But so that was one thing. The other thing is when they did the scene where they all they have the false alarm and everybody runs out of the water, and they did see a shark.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, and I think one of the producers or something was saying, we thought about it. It's like, what if we really have a shark? Because, well, I guess not at that moment, but they had been seen. There was some situations very similar to that where lifeguards could see the sharks in this, close to the swimmers. And he's like, what if we literally are creating the situation that the shark would be attracted to? A shark actually shows up. We try to get everybody out, but they think it's just part of the movie.
Oh,
It
feels cruel.
And he's like, this could have gone really bad.
That feels a little cruel.
Yeah. So, not cruel, but they were the kind of like after the fact thinking, man, that could have gone really, really bad if things had not.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you half a point for yours. But speaking of real sharks, there was footage of real sharks used in this film, and the best footage of a real shark was when Hooper goes down in the cage. So they filmed that actually off of Australia because they wanted real sharks.
Well, no, the cage stuff with our shark Bruce was done in Hollywood.
In Martha's. But
yeah, there was the famous film called A Blue Water White Death, which was a documentary about this two Australians. I can't think of their name. They were very involved in the making of this as consultants. They're two Australian husband and wife team that do a lot of shark that did this movie called Blue Water White Death. Mm-hmm. And it was basically on sharks. And some of their footage, because you're right, they did send them out to Australia to shoot some.
They shot with a person named Carl Rizzo.
Yeah.
And when they realized Hooper or Dreyfus in the tank wasn't going to match, it wasn't going to look right. The shark they had was too small. So it had to be a big threatening shark. So they put in a little person. His name was Carl Rizzo. And so to make him look like Hooper, they gave him a little tank. So it was proportionate. And here comes this, and he's filming, and here comes this shark. Well, the shark kind of gets a little frisky with the cage. And Carl Rizzo starts breathing heavy, maybe hyperventilating, but just breathing heavy. And after a while, he's like, you know what, guys, I'm out. So he's about to run out of air. So he gets out. And right after he leaves, that shark attacked the cage. And it's all that footage that you see.
Yeah, where you see it kind of rolling on top of it.
He's like on top of the cage. Yeah, that's all that.
The ones where you see Hooper in the tank and the shark's kind of bashing through it, that was shot in the tank.
Yeah.
That was under control. So yeah, they did. And that was Spielberg's plan all along, was to try to mix actual shark footage with the animatronic.
Yes, and it worked for the most part. Although sometimes you see things, but it worked for the most part.
I mean, it did. But you know what? There's been how many shark movies since then that use CGI aren't nearly as good as this movie? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just because now the part where the shark comes up and slams onto the orca, people are going to like, oh, but that is actually apparently how great whites will breach. That's really? The way they hunt.
There's footage of them off of Australia.
Yeah, what they'll do is they're usually going after a seal. So the seal's swimming on the surface, and they come up from the bottom, much like the picture, with the movie poster, and they breach right out of the water. And that's kind of what they tried to recreate when he came up on the back of the orca. The little things they did, I thought, which really sold it, like towards the end and after he's eaten Quint, and he's kind of slamming through the boat, he's trying to get Brody. Brody's inside the boat as it's sinking, and the shark kind of comes in and he opens his mouth, and you see all the meat hanging off his teeth.
Yes.
I thought those are the little bits that they did that sold it, that made it really look. Of
There
course,
was a shot of him kind of chewing on the tank too. That I thought,
yeah.
okay, that worked. I don't
Yeah,
think a shark
so-
would do that, but it worked in the movie. You know.
So in the book, the shark does. I forgot how they kill the shark at the end of the book. I didn't actually read it, but I really should. I think I will read the book because it's different.
It is different. Yes.
But so they were trying to. So they who was it that was it? Michael Bay was around then, and somebody was like, "You got to make the shark. It's got to blow up." I forgot who told him to do this, but you got to have the end. It's got to blow up, you know. And he's like, "How the hell am I going to make a shark blow up?" So they came up with the scuba tank idea, which I guess has been debunked that it wouldn't work. It wouldn't actually explode like that. But
yeah, they did that on Hollywood Weapons or something.
So, but anyway, we suspension of disbelief.
Martin. Martin.
What was the?
Martin just got 9 and 10.
What are your question? What was the cameo? Oh, yeah, he was the reporter, correct? Yeah,
He was the reporter. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other cool thing was that we didn't know. I didn't know about till I watched documentaries. They didn't. When he published the book, he wrote the book and he didn't have a name for it. Like literally, the publisher was like, "We're going to print like tomorrow, but we have no title. Like you need to come up with a title." And they had a lot of different names. And of course, they said, "Oh, I think the one that seems to be people like the best is Jaws." So, you know,
Wow. What else could you name it? Like, you know.
Well, they had a whole list. If you watch the documentary of stuff that, you know,
Dennis got a point.
You know, so another interesting thing, and they had an interview with Peter Benchley after this, and after the book was popular, before the movie had come out, and the book was like #1 seller, somebody was doing an interview with Fidel Castro. And somehow they came. He's like, "Oh, and he said, and of course in Spanish, whatever the Spanish name for Jaws was, and whatever. He's reading this book, and they're like, "Well, how are you reading? And how do you justify reading an American entertainment book? It's like, how is this? This is kind of like you're communist, you're not into capital." And he's like, and his thing is, I forgot the exact quote, but basically he's saying it was like, "Oh, it's a great example of how bad capitalism is, or the evils of capitalism." And when you think about it, that's really it. The only reason people died in this movie, except for maybe the first person, was because of the greed of the mayor in the town wanting to keep the beach open.
Yeah.
So, Peter Benchley wanted the publisher to use that quote from Fidel Castro as a promotional thing.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't do it. But he's like, it's perfect. It's true. It's like, it really, when you think about it, it is true. It's like, this is a statement on capitalism because the mayor and the townspeople wanted to make money. They put their livelihood over the safety and lives of their guests.
Yes. Basically. That actually happened in real life years later, like very recently, in a town, in a coastal town in Egypt. That was a resort kind of town. They were sharks in the water, and people, I don't know if people got hurt or not, but the town had a debate, just like in this movie, of like, do we open because we desperately need the tourism, or do we close because there's sharks? So I believe they opened with warnings. I'm sorry, guys, I didn't follow up. I don't know what happened. But they knew there were sharks out there, and I think someone had gotten hurt, and then the debate started. So.
Well, I mean, you have the whole speech. He's like, Amity's a summer town. Amity needs summer dollars. These people can't make it through the winter if they don't have a good summer. And I understand that. At the same time as you literally have, an eating machine. Now, generally, I guess this would be very rare behavior for a shark to hang around.
Yeah.
For as long as it did.
They're like, they circle the map, like they go around, and they will still come back where they know there's good feeding.
Yes. And
like I said, every year.
Gray whites are common in that area. It's not
because we have seals here too. Yeah, so they came for the seals.
But and it's true. They everything they did say that was accurate as far as swimming and the pounding in the water is what attracts them. The thing with sharks is they only way they can tell if something's edible is if they bite it.
Yeah.
So that's why usually, like they've said, like skin divers and stuff, that have been attacked have survived, although been horribly maimed, is because the shark bit them and then went, yuck, rubber.
Oh, that's not food. Yeah.
Like they're wearing a wetsuit or something, and they're like, yuck. Yeah. That doesn't taste good. So they let him go, which is the only reason they lived. But, So the whole dynamic of the movie, I mean, we've talked about so many things. I know last time that the interaction of the actors was so perfect. Apparently, Dreyfuss and Shaw had kind of a love-hate relationship. Richard Dreyfuss described Robert Shaw as the most competitive actor he's ever met. Like, everything became a competition. He didn't understand why. Like, he felt he had to one-up him. Of course, when he did the Indianapolis speech, because they felt they needed a motivation for Quint, why he was so obsessed with catching the shark. So they came up, and it was just, Spielberg's like, I'd never even heard of the Indianapolis before this. Somebody came up and said, hey, how about this? And he had one of his, a screenwriter that he knew had done some other work for him, write it. And I guess the speech that Quint was supposed to write was like 8 pages long.
Yeah.
Ridiculously long. So Robert Shaw read it, and he went to Spielberg, and he's like, look, this is ridiculous. You're going to put these people to sleep if I read this whole thing. He's like, let me rewrite it. And Shaw was a playwright, so he had already written a play, so he knew how to write. So he rewrote that script, and he wanted to be, for some reason, a little buzzed when he did it. Why he felt he would, but he said,
well,
I guess he drank a little too much.
They had eaten dinner, so hadn't they had something to drink on the boat?
No, but he basically asked Spielberg, would you mind if I drink a little bit before I do this scene, so that I wanted. It feels like, sure, why? He's like, now I would have never said yes, but back then I didn't know anything, so I was like, okay. So I guess he had a little too much to drink, so much that the crew had to like help him onto the boat, and he couldn't do it. He was just too drunk. So he felt bad. He got up the next day, felt really bad, called Steven and said, look, I'm really sorry. He's like, give me one more shot at it. I won't.
Yeah.
I'll do it sober. He's like, just please give me one more shot at it. So Steven's like, okay. And that's what we got, that brilliant, of course.
Yeah, of course Steven said, okay. I can't imagine any of the drunk stuff was usable, but maybe it was. I don't know.
No, that's the story.
It's a great
that's the story that Steven portrays or gives. So on the scene, but of course that scene is so iconic. It's so epic. I mean, and the scary thing about it is that whole story is true, 100% true.
Yeah, that's
I think what is even the more.
That's what hits you in the gut, and his telling of the story hits you in the gut.
Well, you understand, and here's a guy who, when you look at it, this is somehow he's coping with his PTSD. This is something that was obviously very traumatic in his life, and he, instead of running away from the water, which a lot of people would have done, and probably gone live in the middle of like Nebraska or something.
Yeah, Nebraska, yeah.
To stay away from the ocean. This guy spends his life catching these things as somehow revenge on, and he wanted to catch, I think, this one particularly. Of course, in the end, the shark eventually got him. He kind of almost knew that was going to be his fate. Of course, in the book, the only one that does live is Brody. Hooper dies in the cage in the book.
Yeah, Hooper does die in the book. I'm kind of glad they made him live.
I think that was a creative change to make it a little bit more positive. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to review super fast the trivia questions and give you the answers, so we all know. The first one was, why did Spielberg ask what would Hitchcock do? And Martin got it. It's because the shark wasn't working, so he needed to figure out, how do I make this thing scary without actually showing my shark? Because it ain't working. Second question, whose dogs were in the movie? Those were Steven Spielberg's dogs. They played the Brody family pets. You see them for like 2 seconds. Third question was, what did Spielberg have nightmares about? We did kind of talk about this, that they were going to pull the plug on him. They were going to fire him. And they were going to take the movie away from him. Fourth question was very hard. I thought very hard. Name or describe a classic Hitchcock shot from the film. And I was looking for the dolly zoom.
The dolly
I was
zoom,
looking
yeah.
for
That's probably
the
the
peeking
most
over the
famous.
shoulder, the wipes. There were a bunch of them. You could have picked any one of those. The next question, fifth question. What? Oh, no one even attempted this one. No one tried to answer. The fifth question is, why were the three main characters so well fleshed out? They all had strong personalities. Why? Because Bruce himself, the shark himself, was he just eats. Like, his motivation was just, I'm a shark, I eat. Like, he wasn't specifically vengeful.
Perfect machine. All this machine does is swim, eat, and make little baby sharks.
Yeah. So they needed a counterbalance to that. Sixth one, what did they ship all the way from Florida for this movie? And somebody did get that. I think it was Martin got the tiger shark. Seventh question, who was Quint based on? A bunch of you got this. It's Chris LaRoche got this. Captain Ahab. Eighth question, I've lost already. Here it is. Oh, no one got this one. You guys were guessing numbers, but no one got this. The eighth question was from that awesome Indianapolis monologue. How many men went into the water and how many men came out on June 29th, 1945? 1,100 men went into the water and 316 came out. So
anyway, we delivered the bomb.
And he has a funny accent too. Like, all of a sudden he has this weird little accent.
He's kind of got that. It's kind of that New England sort of.
It is kind of. Ninth one, what was foreshadowed? A bunch of stuff was foreshadowed. The tank in the shark's mouth was foreshadowed. The boat being attacked. Quint being eaten. It was all foreshadowed earlier in the movie.
Oh yeah, they did a ton of it.
Yeah. The 10th question was, what was Peter Benchley's cameo? And it was the reporter. I did have some bonus questions too. I guess a couple of you guys got the one bonus question. How did Bill Butler revolutionize underwater filming? Yeah, he got the camera in the water so you could see half and half under and half above. And it gave it motion, which was everything. Like, it really brought it alive and made you feel like you were in the water with the shark.
There's several scene shots where you are the shark, particularly in the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
When the opening credits are rolling, you are the shark swimming through the thing.
Exactly.
Through the ocean. You know what I'm saying? So that was one. There's a couple of times when the shot is you as the shark. In other words, it's from the shark's perspective.
You're the shark's perspective. Yeah.
So, but with one of the interesting things that we're talking about the shark, when they were still developing it, they were trying to decide how big to make the shark. And so they got one of their artists. What he did was he drew basically the blueprint for the mechanical shark, full size, on paper. He did an 18-foot, he did a 26-foot, and I think a 36-foot. And he put them up on the wall in this room. And so they all went in there. And Steven looked at him, and I guess he decided, he goes, the 18 looked too small. He's like, people wouldn't really be afraid of it. He goes, but the 36 looked too big. He didn't want to turn it into like a sci-fi horror movie, that this was some kind of supernatural or like megalodon, freak shark. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So they settled on the 26. So that's how they came up with the size of the shark. 25 with 3 tons on him. You could tell from the shape. No, I know this movie.
I had one other bonus question. It was how many Oscars? It won 3 Oscars. The Oscars were for sound, like all the water's the sound. Editing, it was very well edited. And John Williams won an Oscar for the score.
Yeah,
a couple of you guys had a couple of those answers. So
yeah.
I have, my tally has Martin with like 8 of them. Good job, Martin. Chris LaRoche had 3. Sue had like 1.5. And Dennis Chevalier, I think you had 3 or 4. So good job, you guys. Amazing knowledge of the movie Jaws. Martin, what private message me? Which one do you want, the license plate, the Funko Pop, or the T-shirt? And I do need your shipping address. Congratulations on your knowledge of Jaws.
So that's it. Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. I had a thought about that. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, anybody who's coming next week, find me and I'll try to keep a pile of stickers on me for if you want Sci-Fi Distill stickers.
Yeah, when you see us at the studio, we'll
no trivia necessary. So
no, we'll just hand them out.
Oh gosh, it's almost at the end of the hour, but I just love this movie so much.
It was worth revisiting.
I think I can honestly say I'm not saying it's the best movie of all time, although it's up there. Because I mean, like I said, it made so much. I mean, it blew away box office like more than the Godfather had made previous to this. I can't think of what other movies was big back in the early '70s. I mean, it just it just blew every other movie that came out before it out of the water, literally. No pun intended.
It really did, and nothing eclipsed it until Steven's next movie, which I believe was Close Encounters.
Close Encounters? I don't know if Close Encounters made more. I'd have to look that up. E.T. would certainly be probably up there. And of course, then he did.
Well, then E.T. was kind of there. Star Wars. I would think Star Wars would have come along.
Well, Star Wars wasn't Spielberg.
Yeah, well, no, Spielberg. It wasn't, but it was the next big.
Oh, Star Wars by far was the next
1970s. Yeah.
You're really talking 2 years later. So.
Oh, Martin, what a great question. What was the knot that Quint asked Hooper? And Hooper got it. Hooper did it.
That is the most common. It's a bowline or bowline.
A bowline. And
that's if you learn one knot, one boating knot, that's the knot to learn.
It started with 3 loops, and then
when I was in the Coast Guard, we used to try to see who could do it the fastest behind our backs without looking. That's how common that is.
That is a good test.
Goes into the hole, round spin.
Yeah, into the cave, around the hole. Yeah.
That's basically how you do it. He was showing them the right way. Yeah. I still use that is the most universal and handy knot that you will ever learn. So if you ever learn any knot, learn a bowline.
Rizzo will teach you at Shatner next week.
I can. It's easy. It's not a hard one to learn. So we are going to be off next week because of Shatner. We just need to have a little bit of a break before Bill and all the other activities that go along with Bill. It's going to be more like a Trek Ticonderoga. It's going to be like a Trek Ticonderoga without the panels.
There's so much going on. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a really big crowd, and we have a lot of amazing guests. I am super excited for this event. And by super excited, I mean really worried.
Right. It's going to be good. I think it's going to be good. It's going to be good. We just hopefully everything will work out weather-wise and all that. But we got, like I said, there's so many. You got Sandy Gimple coming back. You got Robin Curtis coming back. You got Barbara Luna coming back.
France, unfortunately, will not join us.
Unfortunately, but we got the other.
Lamani. Tanya Lamani will be joining us.
She was the belly dancer.
Belly dancer girl?
Yeah. And the Akutas are going to be there. Who are always great to have.
Darren's always there. Darren will be there. David Jarrett will be there. I believe Dave Glass is going to swing by. It's going to be off the hook, you guys. So if any of you don't have tickets and you're debating, get your tickets. Get your tickets and come on out.
Even if you don't buy the full blown.
Well, unfortunately, the biggest one is all sold out now, but there's still plenty of tickets left.
All right, I don't know. Does Roy got anything going on this week?
Yeah, Roy does. What did I write down for Roy and for Phil? Roy. Oh, Friday, June 20th. Oh, because you know why? It's what's his name? Martin Landau's birthday. So they're gonna do North by Northwest from 1959. It's a thriller directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Cary Grant, Eva Marie Saint, and James Mason. And then Phil does the Bill McNulty show, which is the politics show at noon. Of course, Bill, 90 years old, went off to the No Kings protests, and they will be talking about those. And then in the afternoon on Captain Phil's Planet, he has the new Carrie Kearney CD, which he will be spinning, and some new music. So all that's happening on WUSB Stony Brook. Rizzo, we're off next week. Do we know what we're doing in July, or do we care?
No, I was thinking of doing, I think I sent you a message. I was thinking of doing like old 70s, some other old 70s sci-fi stuff that we, 70s sci-fi, some of the stuff that it wasn't super popular, but is worth mentioning. Movies like Silent Running,
yeah.
And Dark Star, yeah.
Yeah, they were
Star Crash.
Star Crash, yeah. They're a bunch of, and then you guys let me know. I thought about kicking around the idea of doing movies that are only the one movie, or maybe the the one season of the TV show. I was gonna do, is it worth, like, does this thing need a reboot? Does this thing need a remake? Do we touch it? Do we try it again? Or is it perfect the way it is? I thought about looking at those. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. And if you're not, then we won't. We won't do it. Like, because I feel like we did Crawl last week or 2 weeks ago. I feel like Crawl, I would like to see Crawl remade. I would like to see a modern attempt at Crawl. I really would. I think it's worth it. Rizzo disagrees with me. So I was wondering about some other movies that were just, one-offs. I was like, does this need a second chance? I think so.
Well, that's kind of like what these are. These are movies that I think were...
Yeah, the 70s movies. They're like one-off.
They weren't as popular and they're worth a second look. There are a lot that we watched on television, late night TV or something. Yeah. But probably weren't made for kids by any means. So, we have some oddball stuff. We'll
just roll on through July.
We got 2 weeks to worry about it. I got to get through next week.
A couple weeks. So, come on out to Shatner. And I will see you all there.
On that note, it's after 8 o'clock. I'll let everybody go. We can talk about this movie for hours. But, yeah, if you get a hold of that, like I said, that documentary that's on the DVD, I don't know if it's available anywhere else. It's really worth watching if you enjoy this. So, all right. On that note, I will say good night. Live long and prosper. And as always, may the force be with you and stay out of the water.
Stay out.